On this episode, we discuss whether or not expats should be considered ambassadors for all of expatdom, or merely people doing their own thing.
So if you want to hear us discuss how far we should be expected to go to fit into Thailand, you'll dig this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 for 4 months with a friend who left after 12 days. And I just did the math, and I've been here 54,650% longer than he was.
Yeah, that's just slightly longer. And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a 1-year teaching contract 19 years ago. And I've been waiting for YouTube Premium to become available in Thailand. And it finally has this week, so now I can go.
Your celebratory post on Facebook about how this is one of the greatest days in your life is a bit wild.
It's true. I've been waiting for YouTube Premium to become available. I can get YouTube now without advertisements, like no interruptions. I've been waiting for this for years.
It's a big day.
It's huge. I'm not. There's no exaggeration. This is a great day. Seriously, I mean, I'm a YouTube addict, and the ads are just annoying. They're just annoying, and now I can just pay a relatively small amount of money, and I don't have to see the ads. And they also have a music service, so I'll be able to get rid of Spotify, can consolidate some of my subscriptions. This is huge.
I'm with you, man. I don't like ads either. That's why we don't have any on the show, and that's why we rely on our lovely patrons.
That's right. Well, so I'm making an announcement for all of our listeners who happen to be in Thailand. YouTube Premium is now available in the Kingdom of Thailand, along with other places around Asia. They just expanded it pretty heavily in ASEAN and in Asia, and I think it's a good thing. Like, maybe we'll have to do a show on it, but I'm kind of just a Google fanboy, so I just sign up for every Google thing I can.
Right. And after the show finishes recording about midnight, Ed's going to run off, tearing around his Mubon, screaming at the top of his lungs, Google Premium is now here.
That's right. Yeah, they should pay me, man. Damn it. They really should. No, seriously, it's a big day, dude. It's a big day.
All right. I'm with you.
All right, we want to say a quick thank you to one of our patrons, MSAG, who supports us at the show shout-out level. Stick around after we're done talking about whether or not expats are cultural ambassadors from their countries, to hear why MSAG is either a completely mysterious patron or an artificial AI that's trying to become Skynet. Patrons like MSAG get a whole bunch of cool stuff, including our regular show a day early, behind-the-scenes photos and videos of our interviews, discounts on swag, which you can find on our website, and various other things that aren't available to regular listeners. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and random topics. We just finished recording this week's bonus show, and we chatted about the Thai Prime Minister comparing Thailand to ants. He did, for real. You gotta listen to believe it. More updates on big plans by the Bangkok government that were scrapped, and some pet peeves around motorcycle taxis. To become a patron yourself, head to bangkokpodcast.com/support.
Right, and before we get into the main show, we also want to mention something a little bit funny. We now have our very own set of Line stickers. That's the Line chat app. That's the dominant form of communicating in Thailand. And they have these things, if you don't know, where you can send stickers to people that sort of express a thought or an emotion or something like that. And I downloaded this app online that sort of lets you submit your own sticker set, and I did it just for a laugh, and they were accepted. So we now have our Bangkok Podcast sticker set, which is kind of funny. So you can search for Bangkok Podcast on the Line sticker store, although it's a bit wonky sometimes. I don't really know how it works, but we'll also have a link in the show notes to the stickers on the store. I think they cost like $1 or something like that. And a lot of people have asked, no, we don't get a cut from it at all. I wish we did, but Line gets all that money for themselves.
I'm just not hip enough to even know what a Line sticker is, but I'll just pretend I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. All the kids like them.
All right.
So, check those out. All right, on this episode, Ed and I want to jump into something that we actually started disagreeing about very recently and decided to hold off on our conversation for the show. And our conversation was this. Should expats behave simply as foreigners living in another country, or should they take on a more representative role as sort of ambassadors for their own country, or indeed all of expatdom? To what extent should we be expected to fit in to the local culture? And I'll give you my thoughts on this, and this is what kicked off Ed and I having a little disagreement. I think that expats, when you're living in another country, you are an ambassador for your country. You're sort of an ambassador for all visitors to the country, and probably good or bad, just the way it is, you're probably an ambassador for your race, I think. This is kind of an inelegant way to put it, but I think that's the sort of ugly truth about it. What do you think, Ed?
I'm going to say no. I mean, that's just my immediate reaction. I understand your point, and I think what you're trying to do is encourage expats to behave well, and that I totally agree with. So, I mean, if the idea is, as a foreigner living in a country, should you behave well? I'm going to say yes. But to be honest, I don't like this idea of us acting as cultural ambassadors. I don't get it. I really don't get it. The bottom line is, I think when you're at home, you should follow the laws and, in general, be a decent person and not be a jerk. And I think when you're living overseas, you should follow the laws and, in general, be a decent person and not be a jerk. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, so I don't really like the idea of me representing America. To me, I think it's well intentioned. So I think what you're saying is, to expats, don't be an ass, and that I agree with. Yeah. You know, that I do agree with, but I don't feel like I have any special burden. Like, I'm just myself. I'm just Ed from Ohio. That's I'm Ed from Ohio. That's all I got. You know, I don't represent the United States, and if I did behave badly, I certainly wouldn't want someone to say, "Oh, Americans are so lame." They should just say that Ed guy from Ohio is lame.
You know right? I mean? Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. But I mean, I was thinking about this on the way home too, and on the way home, I was on the SkyTrain, and there was a really loud group of Chinese tourists, and I was just thinking, man, Chinese tourists are loud. And so, that's maybe unfair, but I maybe it is fair. I think people could probably agree that Chinese tourists, I think, I'll up there with Italians, who are also very loud, and they weren't being rude or anything. It's just they were talking really loud. So now, like, sort of, I have this mindset of, like, whenever you see a group of Chinese tourists walking somewhere, you're going to expect them to be loud. And
look, the bottom line is, Chinese tourists probably do have a bad reputation. And, I think it's okay to generalize as long as you don't assume that when you meet a Chinese person that they're rude,
Right.
But to me, that fits into my point that the bottom line is they're just acting like jerks, which they shouldn't really do when they're at home or in Thailand. You know, it's like, I don't see how they have to do some extra thing. I mean, they should be, I don't know. I mean, I guess you should be aware. I mean, like the bottom line is, maybe what you're saying is, I should be aware in Thailand that Thai people might generalize about Americans based on how I behave. You know, is that what you mean? So it's like, I should be aware that if I do something bad, Thai people might think that all white guys act this way.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I see what you're saying, and then maybe it's not fair, but the fact of the matter is, if you walk down the street and, like, are drinking a beer at 9 a.m. on Khao San Road and, like, throw it on the ground and it smashes, like, that's going to be noticed and seen by Thai people, and they're going to be like, these goddamn foreigners, these goddamn tourists, these Americans, these white arrogant guys. White guys, yeah, like, fair or not, that's probably what's going to be said.
Okay, I understand. I mean, I understand that point you're making, and I think you're probably right that some Thai people would do that. So based on my individual behavior or your individual behavior, they may generalize about Westerners. But I think, because the way I think about it is, because I don't think they should do that, then I don't feel responsible for it, or at least that's not why I want to behave well. Like, to me, that's too much of a burden. It's like, the bottom line is there are real ambassadors, there are real diplomats. Like if I worked for the embassy, then I would be like, okay, damn, I represent my country, like literally,
like I'm a legit.
Yeah. Or like I understand like when they say, Olympic athletes and they end up getting hammered like and do like in trash hotel rooms and they're like, hey, dude, you're representing your country. That is true. Like I think like you're wearing the uniform of your country. You're literally representing your country. But I know this sounds weird, but I don't feel like I represent America. How do I represent America? I just represent myself, and I want to hold myself to high standards, but I don't behave well because I'm an American.
Right. But if you were behaving... that's interesting. Like if you're behaving bad, people wouldn't be like, "Oh, that guy Ed is bad," because they don't know that, they don't have access to that information. They would just see you and go, "That guy, that white guy from America, he's a jerk."
Yeah, but that's their problem. At least that's what I think about it. If I met an obnoxious Thai person, which sounds like a contradiction because very few Thai people are actually obnoxious, but if I met a badly behaved Thai person in the States, I don't think I would generalize about Thai people, or at least I don't think you should do that.
It's interesting to think like if you're an ambassador, whether you get judged fairly or unfairly as good or bad. Like Canadians have a reputation of being really nice.
That is true.
Which is not always the truth. I know some Canadians that are real dickheads.
I could name some of them. But no, I won't.
Why are you staring at me through the camera? Stop looking at me.
Dude, you're jolly, man. You're a Canadian Santa Claus.
I am jolly. But it's funny, like I wonder if like how long does it take before the scales tip to be like, oh, that Canadian guy is nice, to wow, all Canadians are nice.
Right.
I think the currency of being like a disrespectful expat probably goes way further than being a respectful expat.
Yeah, that's probably true. Maybe this is somewhat of a pointless discussion because obviously we both think you should behave well. It's just we're kind of disagreeing on why you should behave well. Like I don't know, maybe I'm just being lazy in the sense that I don't want to worry about representing the U.S. To me that's just like a burden I don't want. Like I don't want to. Right. I don't want people to like look at me as some representative of the States. To me, it doesn't make sense. Like I'm just an individual, man. Like that's all I am.
I dig, and it's not like I'm walking around outside being like, man, people are probably watching me. I better act good as Ambassador Greg. I'm a nice guy because I'm a nice guy, but I also know that my actions are going to be judged as those of an expat. And they're going to be applied to other expats, whether fairly or not.
I mean, that's true. This is closely related, I think, to this question of, as expats, like, to what extent should we try to behave like a Thai person? So on the one hand, you're saying we have to kind of, think about the reputation of our own country. But on the other hand, I think it's not really opposite, but on the other hand, I think obviously there's the age-old maxim, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So that's supposed to mean that when you're in a foreign country, you should try to assimilate. So in a way, it's like, and we've lived here a long time, so to a certain extent, we have, like, how much should we assimilate? Like, to what extent do we have a duty to be Thai?
That's an interesting question, and I don't think there's an easy answer because it's one of these soft targets that, like, you can do it up to a point, but if you go too far, like if I walked around with my shirt pulled up to my nipples with my belly hanging out, like like a lot of Thai guys do, people would be like, dude, what's wrong with you? So yeah, but I'm also expected to take my shoes off when I go into places.
Like, yeah, that's kind of a fascinating thing because, yeah, like, a lot of Thai guys, frankly, I don't think it's a lot. I think the Thai guys who walk around with no shirts, I think most Thai people would be like, God, that's kind of rude. So I don't think Thai people think that's cool when Thai guys do it.
Yeah, it's only in certain areas, and usually by like very blue collar guys hanging around with their buddies, like on the side of the soy. It's not like at my office there's Thai guys walking around with their bellies hanging out.
But you almost never see white guys do that except at the beach. Obviously, like you don't see white guys like walking around the city without a shirt on. I don't remember ever seeing that.
Well, if I saw some Farang guy walking down this Sukhumvit with his shirt off, I'd be like, dude, put your shirt on. You're giving us a bad name. You're making us look like ignorant douches. You know,
I guess,
like you're an ambassador for Farangs.
Okay.
Act like an respect.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to disagree. It's not that I would be on that guy's side, but you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me. So now I feel like you and I are being consistent, because when we debated bag packers, I said I don't think it's any worse for a Farang to beg than for a Thai person. But you were like, no way. It's like, if you're a Westerner, you should not be begging here.
Yeah, I agree. I think it looks ugly. It looks sloppy. It sets a bad example, and it makes us look. I mean, first of all, if you're here anyway, you're lucky enough to be traveling. I mean,
right.
Do some better planning, and it just gets getting into the weeds here. But yeah, that's right. I think that I don't think that backpackers should be.
So basically, what you're saying is you would not look down on a Thai person who's begging, but you do look down on a white person if they were begging.
Yeah, like if a Thai person is begging, it's not because they're like, I ran out of money and I want to go to Bali. You know, it's like I can't afford to eat. You know, so I'm down with that. But if it's
you never know. I guess you never really know. Like if maybe that Thai person really wants to go to Bali, you never know.
Well, maybe Bali is pretty nice, but if it's some guy with like dreadlocks playing a ukulele from Hungary, I'm like, come on, man, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's weird, this whole standards thing. You know, it's this whole idea of trying to fit in. I mean, on the one hand, it's common sense that you would just follow Thai customs. So like you pointed out, taking off shoes, you know, trying to why older people, trying to use honorifics like kun or kop. Like to me,
doing the magical head nod when you want to like walk in front of someone and ducking a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like so to me, that's definitely true. So I think when you are in Rome, you should try to do as the Romans do. So living in Thailand, we should adopt kind of basic Thai customs, but I do think it's kind of hard to know where to draw the line. I don't know if I ever told you the story, and it may be a little bit too specific, but this issue brought up this situation. So in general, you know, I'm not a religious person, but of course I respect Buddhism. I'm you know, I teach philosophy, you know, at the university, so I have to teach some kind of Buddhist philosophy stuff. But I had a weird experience. This was probably about 10 years ago when my wife had a really bad motorbike accident. She had a very severe head injury, and she was basically recovering for about a whole year. It took her to recover, and her mother, my mother-in-law, wanted to get her blessed by a famous monk. And she couldn't. She was basically an invalid. My wife was kind of an invalid and couldn't leave the house. And so, the monk and his entourage of about it was big. I would say they had 20 people.
Jeez.
Like basically, he's a famous, super old monk, and it was not cheap. Like we had to pay him to come to the house to do this blessing. And so I'm thinking of like, I don't necessarily believe this. I don't know what he's going to do, and I'm not a religious person, but this is Thailand and this is so whatever. So I'm like, sure, no problem. You know, and I can't remember. I probably either paid for it or contributed to it at least. So I wanted to support it. But it got a little bit awkward because he was, first off, he was a super old monk, and he really looked like something. I mean, and I don't mean this I mean this in a respectful way. He looked like someone out of Lord of the Rings. Like, he was like a Gandalf figure or like a Yoda figure. Like he was just this,
like a wizened, wise old sage.
Literally. I mean, he was bent over. He had a staff. I'm not shitting you. He had a staff.
Wow,
for real. He was looked like he was about 95 years old. I don't think I ever learned how old he was, but he was this super old, very famous Thai monk. And
that's why you have to take your shoes off, because if you tried to keep him on and walk in the house, he would slam his staff on the ground and say, "You shall not pass."
You had to work that in. You just had to work that in.
Had to.
No, so he came in, and there was this ceremony where he was chanting, and I was, you know, I'm down with this. I'm down with this whole thing, right? I'm trying to be supportive of it, and I never researched this or figured anything out, but it kind of devolved into this fairly strange thing where he was God, it was like this bizarre thing where he had this tub of water where I think he had like flower petals in it, and he sang all these prayers and stuff, and then he took a cup and drank water from it, and then, I'm not joking, he spit it out of his mouth all over her head and face.
What?
He sprayed her with water. He spit water in her face.
What?
For real, this
man.
happened. This for real. This happened.
Yeah, like,
and I don't even want to be honest. I don't even know why I brought this up, because it really upsets me, because she was in a seriously reduced mental state. It's like she was like did not have all of her faculties, and
right.
The image of this guy like spitting water in her face, like I'll never forget it. I almost intervened, and luckily it was. There was no extent. This wasn't like some extended thing, and in a way, I'm kind of glad I didn't know that's what was going to go down, because I think I would have put my foot down. Because even though my mother-in-law like worshipped this monk, if I would have had a preview of what was going to go down, I would have said, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to let some old-time monk spit on my wife." I don't care. Like I know whatever. I mean, like there's just a limit to how much I'm going to respect local customs, and I know from his perspective, he's not spitting. Like maybe he's just spraying. I don't know, but it was too far.
So like, where's the point where you're expected to just be like just to roll over and say, well, that's local customs, and say like, hey, whoa, this is starting to go against my beliefs now, or
I mean,
what I'm comfortable with.
I mean, that's to be honest, I don't really have too many examples like that from all my years in Thailand. Like, because whatever.
I got one.
Oh, really? Go ahead.
Well, it's sort of related, and I maybe have mentioned this on the show before, but I won't get into too many details because it is a little bit private. But years ago, I was dating this girl, and she went to see a fortune teller, as a lot of Thai people do, and the fortune teller told her that she would be pregnant soon. So, no points for guessing what I was not doing a lot of for the next few months. And it pissed me off. I'm like, this random dude sitting on a blanket on the sidewalk on Sukhumvit somehow has talked my girlfriend to not having some fun with me, and it pissed me off. I'm like, now that's affecting my life. The stranger that I've never met and never, talked to or never will see again is now his influence is impeding on my enjoyment of my personal life.
Damn him.
Yeah. And of course my girlfriend obviously never got pregnant,
right.
But then it's always like, well, maybe I would have gotten pregnant.
That's right. It sounds like the fortune teller like did you a favor, man.
Maybe he did. Maybe I got to find the guy and give him a 500 baht or something. But
actually, that's a great example, because in general, it's like, if you have a girlfriend or whoever who's into fortune tellers, even if you're not, like in general, you should be like, okay, whatever, like do your thing. But you're right. There is kind of a limit. At some point, if it starts really messing with your life, then there is a limit. There's a limit where you say, no, I'm not going to do as the Romans do. I'm not going to do as Thai people do.
Right now, I'm sitting in my podcast chair here at the intergalactic headquarters of the Bangkok podcast. I'm looking up on the top shelf of my bookcase, and that's some really valuable storage space I got up there. But I can't put anything up there because there's flowers and a statue of Buddha and a glass of water. And like, all right, it doesn't mean anything to me, but sure, all right, there's nothing against that.
Yeah.
I mentioned it on the show before too. My wife gave me a blue glass sphere to place on my desk because of feng shui.
Oh, really?
Sure. I'll put a blue marble on my desk at work. I'll go nuts. But when it starts to like get bigger and bigger and bigger, like it's kind of that unanswerable question. At what point do I say, no, this is enough?
I know the point. It's when they start spitting water in your wife's face. That's
crazy, man.
That's the point where you're like, no, it's one of the weirder. It's one of the weirder experiences I've had in Thailand. I should make a list of, maybe that's a future show. Maybe each of us will pick the top 3 just strangest thing that have ever happened to us that we couldn't believe. The 3 most surprising things that have happened to us in Thailand. Because I've got a few other ones. They're unrelated, so I think we'd have to do a show. But this monk out of the blue, like doing this weird blessing, was totally unexpected, because before that he was just like chanting in Pali, and I'm like, all right, whatever, okay, like chanting in Pali.
Right.
I can deal with that.
Well, as we're wrapping this up now, I just typed in expats as ambassadors into Google, and I got 2 hits here.
Oh, okay.
2 top hits. The first one was was a quote from 2012 from the UK, said David Isley, head of NatWest International Personal Banking, said, either by design or by accident, British expats have taken on a sort of ambassadorial position whereby they play a pivotal role in promoting certain values and best practices. And there's another website that's from the Swiss president from 2008, saying President Pascal Couchepin has praised the Swiss abroad for acting as an impressive body of potential ambassadors. So it's an idea that's out there.
You know, I get it. I just think that you should just be a decent person wherever you live. And I feel like when you call me an ambassador, you're giving me extra work, dude. I've got enough work.
All right, how about this? This is what we can settle on.
I'm busy enough.
This is what we can settle on. Be a nice person, but also be aware that some people may or may not be judging you or your country based on your actions, unfairly or not.
Yeah, I got to admit that that's true. I mean, so maybe you should be aware that they are going to probably generalize. So if you care about that, then change your behavior. And
we all know not to generalize, except to say that every Canadian person is nice.
That's right. And they like maple syrup.
That's right. All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us picks a particular aspect of life in Bangkok, which we then discuss and decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept that is something that we have to learn to live with no matter how we feel about it. And this week, it's my turn. And Ed, have you ever gone to the grocery store to buy some toothpaste? And you pick up this nice-looking box. It's colorful. It looks good. It looks good. It's delicious. You get it home. You put it on your toothbrush. You put it in your mouth. And it is salt. Salty toothpaste.
That has never happened to me, but I think I have tried that. I think maybe
really.
So I know what you're talking about, but I have this vague memory. I think my wife asked me to try it years ago or showed it to me, so I'm aware of this, but I've actually never accidentally bought it. So, but I definitely don't like
accidentally buying it or not. But you've used it.
I have. Yeah, I mean, I tried it. I think I tasted it, or like my wife was like, whatever. Like, so I'm aware of this stuff. And it was just too weird and too foreign. I was like, no, I'm out. Like, no way.
Yeah, same. Loathe.
Is it actually,
it's a weird, shocking taste.
Is it actually salt? What is it?
As far as I know, it's salt because it's like the grains of salt act as sort of like scrubbing agents on your teeth, which I guess.
But I mean, is it just, what is it? Is it just like a cheap local version of toothpaste? Is that what it is?
I don't know. I think it's just a sort of an Asian formula of toothpaste. You know,
my memory is it's not a Western brand that has some local variant. It's like some local brand.
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's probably only the local brands like Darlie or something like that.
Yeah, I have this vague sense that it's some Chinese thing, like some Chinese herbal or Chinese traditional thing, or it's like old school toothpaste. Traditional Thai toothpaste.
It comes on a package with like a centipede and a fly on it or something. Like, what's going on here?
No, I've tried it. But it's weird. I mean, I'm digging deep into my memory because I think it was a long time ago that I tried it, and I didn't like it.
No, me neither. I'll go out of my way to avoid it. I'll go back across the street to the store to buy some good old fashioned mint toothpaste. Yeah, loathe.
So as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we'd like to say thank you to MSAG for lending us his support at the show shoutout level. And Greg, what did you find out about MSAG?
Well, I'm going to have to put on my tinfoil hat for this one because I think I stumbled on a conspiracy here, as I sometimes do. But as it turns out, we don't know much about MSAG. I emailed and asked for info, as I normally do, and the reply I got was this, quote, I never really came over the shock that they didn't use chopsticks in Thailand.
I like that. That's funny.
Yeah. So I didn't know what to make of that. Now, my first thought was just that MSAG was a private person and maybe didn't want to share too much, which is fine. But then, last week I went out and I saw Terminator Dark Fate, and I got to wondering if MSAG was actually something a bit more darker. So I did some Googling, and it seems that MSAG, that's MSAG, most commonly refers to a multi-service access gateway, which handles phone and internet traffic, right?
Whoa.
Then it hit me that the 1,300 kilometer MCT undersea cable that comes into Thailand and gives internet to the country via Rayong is not so far away, and my conspiracy muscles got going. I think MSAG might be an AI that's trying to learn about Thai culture, which is why he, she, or it was surprised by Thailand's lack of chopsticks because, you always see the anachronism in popular media of Thai people using chopsticks, which is only with noodle dishes. But that's how an AI would learn about humanity, right? Watching TV shows, listening to radio shows and stuff like that. So,
Interesting.
yeah, I think one of our new patrons might be like a secret AI trying to infiltrate humanity's secrets to learn a bit more.
Well, he sounds like a smart AI, because if you want to learn about Thailand, you should be listening to the Bangkok podcast.
That's right. And this is what you always say, right, Ed? Like, we don't really care what you're doing, but as long as you're giving us money, you're our friend. So
Right.
Whether you're a man, a woman, or an evil artificial intelligence hell-bent on learning about humanity to ultimately destroy us, MSAG, thank you for the support, sir,
Yeah.
or woman, or ma'am.
Yeah,
Or
we'll take support
bits and bytes.
wherever we can get it.
Yeah. Thanks for the support. We do appreciate it.
That's right. A final thanks to our patrons who help keep the show ad-free. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing they're helping support the show. Find out more by clicking support on our website and connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Yeah, you can also listen to each episode on YouTube, chat with us online, send stickers online, especially for the Bangkok Podcast, or even reach out to me directly on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg. So thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you back here next week.
Hello, hello, hello. Test, test, test. Hello.
Oh, crap. Hang on. You can hear my Spider-Man game on pause in the background. Let me turn the TV
Funny.
off.